Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al, week 8. I'm going to do a lineup builder show for you every single Friday. I take an hour with my Twitch subs and I answer questions for 45 minutes, 60 minutes or so, however long that they can keep me here. We talk about game theory questions, DFS strategy questions, anything that they can bring up. I'll talk about specific players, some of my favorite guys that I like this week, some guys that they want me to discuss, this or that. We try to keep the 1v1s and 2v2s until the Sunday morning show. I'm live the last 45 minutes right before lock on Twitch. That link is down below in the description. Just go ahead and click that. You can find that and links to all my other socials. I take their questions for the last 45 minutes until lineups lock on Sunday right before kickoff. So if people are going to wonder and ask on Twitter, if you're going to watch this video and then come to Twitter and say, hey, what time are you live on Sunday? 45 minutes before kickoff. That's when I'm live on Sunday. Hopefully I get to see you there. Much easier for me to get to know you guys over on Twitch than it is for me to talk to you over here on YouTube in the comments. It's too tough to keep up with and it's too slow. As you can see, the Twitch chat loves it when I start every video with a smile. So we're going to get to some of their questions today. I did want to say, people ask me what site that I use. It's Daily Roto. That's where I go for all my projections. That's where I use for an optimizer to build the 150 lineups that I build for NBA and for NFL. They also support college football, golf, and NHL with their projections and optimizers. And the most important thing is, to me, is their alerts. They will help make you a better player. They've got great premium articles as well as a dedicated Slack channel for their subscribers. You can get 10% off at sign up using that promo code SMIZLIFE. There is a link down below in the description. Use that link. Go check out their site, browse around. If you want to cut the time that you have to spend researching, if you're somebody who works a 9-to-5 job and you want to play daily fantasy and not have to research all day and have other people do that research for you and just consolidate the work that you have to do to be able to build better lineups, Daily Roto is going to help you do that. So go check them out. They're a big supporter of the stream. Let's get to the chat. Let's see what they want to talk about. Favorite wide receivers from 4K to 5K. All right. There's a lot. There's a lot in this range. Okay. So DK Metcalf has been somebody that I've been waiting for an explosion game from. This could be the week that it happens, going up against Atlanta, who's been ridiculously inefficient at stopping opposing passing games. You also have a very efficient quarterback in Russ Wilson and DK Metcalf, who's getting fed the ball in the red zone and in the end zone as much as anyone else in the league, top 3 in both categories on the season, and has not connected for more than 2 touchdowns. So we're expecting a little bit of regression towards the mean here in a positive way for DK Metcalf moving forward. And that doesn't mean it's definitely going to happen this week, but this is going to be as good a matchup as he has all season long, and a really high totaled game there as well. So increased touchdown equity for him. DJ Moore, not really. Crowder, sure, but like if you think that they're going to have a bounce back opportunity, I think that Jacksonville is going to get pressure on this Jets backfield and put some pressure on their quarterback Darnold not as much as they saw last week, but still a lot. Can you go with Jarvis Landry? I mean, maybe, but I'm not really thrilled about it. Somebody that I am thrilled about is Kenny Stills at 4,700. In the absence of Will Fuller, everybody's role is now very clearly defined. Stills is going to play that Fuller role. We have Kiki Kute right in the slot every single time, and 24 targets the past 2 weeks for their big dog Hopkins. But Kenny's still stepping into a role that he can do well in, right? We've seen him get down the field for Miami for years and post big games a little bit not okay. So when he has a big game or had a big game for Miami, sometimes it would just come kind of out of the blue and was a little bit more unpredictable. Oakland has really struggled against wide receivers. They allow one of the top touchdown rates to wide receivers, and Kenny Stills going to be running that down the field role for Will Fuller while he is out. So he's going to come with a massive ownership as well. Manuel Sanders traded, which opened up value, but it opens up value above and below the range that you guys wanted to talk about. Corey Davis saw a bunch of targets last year. The problem was him converting those targets into yards. Tannehill in the last 2 weeks has looked vastly better than Marcus Mariota in this Titans offense. We'll see if that can continue. I think he's going to be somewhat popular. Cole Beasley, oh, I feel so sad for this picture. I feel so sad for for what Adam Levitan has done to this guy's psyche. It's a shame. It really is just a shame. Auden Tate going against the Rams. I'm not really thrilled to play him at all, but the targets have been there. Kiki Kute, not really high value targets and not really an awful lot of volume of targets, but you know that he's going to get more snaps in previous weeks. So at least he'll be on the field. AJ Dollywood Brown, somebody that I do think will be at least more usable this week than he was before, with the change at quarterback with Tannehill, and when you add in the matchup that they have there as well. And probably my favorite player in this range, Mike Williams, somebody else who's got massive touchdown regression coming his way in a good way because of how many red zone and end zone targets he has. He has been basically getting you to value at the price that he's at without scoring touchdowns. 0 touchdowns on the year, but one of the league leaders in red zone and end zone targets. Chicago has not thrived recently, especially against opposing wide receivers. They're going to lock up their best cornerback on Keenan Allen, which is going to leave Mike Williams with a size advantage on the outside, and he's only 4K. So wasn't paying off his salary at $4,600, but wasn't missing it by that much. And if he had touchdowns, his price would have stayed there, but he doesn't have any touchdowns, so it fell, but he's got the service to get there. So Mike Williams at 4K is going to be one of the higher owned wide receivers on this slate. So that's the entire breakdown of 4K to 5K. The Chargers will find a way to lose versus Trubisky. I'm not saying you're wrong and I'm not saying you're right. I'm just saying I don't care. Like, this is how you have to think about daily fantasy. And I mean that, I mean absolutely no offense when I say that, Steve. Or L Steve, or should I call you Esteban if it's L Steve? Anyway, I mean no offense when I say that. I just don't care who wins the games. You know, I really don't. I care about volume. I care about touchdown opportunities. I care about how many snaps somebody's going to play. I care about matchups. So like, I think when people worry about, and I'm not saying you are, but I think it's a good teaching moment for all the fine folks on YouTube that are watching this video. I think that this is a good spot to realize that, like, I don't care about the teams. I don't care about how bad you think a team is. I don't care if they're 1-6. If they have players that are going to post numbers, that's all I care about in terms of daily fantasy. Triple Brown last name stack this week. AJ, John, and Jaron. Well, not okay. 2 of the 3 is fine, I think. Thoughts on the Lions backfield and cash? I don't know that you need it. Is Hamilton a good play? We're talking about DAESAN Hamilton when that question's brought up, and he's going to be a point of contention this week, at least for me. In the last 4 games of last year, when DAESAN Hamilton played and Emmanuel Sanders was out, DAESAN Hamilton averaged over 6 catches and over 9 targets. I think it was 6.2 catches on 9.5 targets per game. You can argue anything else you want. He's not good. His quarterback's not great. He's not going to score an 80-yard touchdown. He may not get end zone targets. If he gets that service, because we can only make decisions up until the decision point. I can't tell you what's, people love to look back and say, well, obviously he was a terrible play. Tell me that now. If you think DAESAN Hamilton's a terrible play, put that on record now. Put your name on it now, before kickoff. Because I don't think he's a terrible play. I don't think he's an absolute must-play smash. But I'm not going to say that he is an absolutely terrible play due to the volume and the snaps and everything else that he's going to have. If he gets 5 catches for 50 yards, he pays off this tag with no touchdowns. 5 catches for 50 yards. And it's not about what DAESAN Hamilton does for me himself. Like, if DAESAN has a 22-point fantasy day, then awesome. But I'm not rostering him because I'm banking on a 22-point fantasy day. You're rostering DAESAN Hamilton because he opens up a lot more for you. And like I just detailed greatly, there's a lot of really good plays from 4K to 5K. So he's nowhere near a must play at 3.3K. But I do believe that DAESAN Hamilton is a good play this weekend. Jared Cook flowchart play. We have to wait for an injury report on that. We have to wait for multiple injury reports on that. We have to realize that while I think that Teddy Bridgewater is fine, I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is great. He's great in terms of game management and NFL and everything else. He's not great for fantasy outside of Michael Thomas. So if Breeze is back, that's one injury report we got to wait for. I like Cook a little bit more. He does target his tight ends once he gets into the red zone, and tight ends peppers them with targets in the end zone historically. Also, we need to know if Jared Cook is going to play. He's still questionable. We don't know yet. As Friday's practice report comes out, we'll have a bit of a clearer picture. But we record this video at 9:30 in the morning on Friday for me on the West Coast, so it's a little bit of a different story. Do we jam CMC, Fournette, and Carson this week? I think Fournette's going to be the highest owned out of that three. I think CMC makes a really good tournament play. I'm probably not going to stuff him into a cash game lineup. Carson is another one that I think is fine in both formats, cash and tournament, especially if Ryan does not play in this game. The Falcons front seven has done all right against opposing running backs, but if you think they get dusted by the by Seattle at home, and you think that this game's just not going to be competitive, then it could turn into a Carson script game in the second half. How much volume for Ty Johnson? I think about 15. Like, if you're rostering Ty Johnson, I think the mistake is to say, well, Kerryon Johnson was getting a ton of looks and a ton of volume when he was there, so therefore Ty Johnson is going to get 20 plus carries. I think that if you get 15 touches out of Ty Johnson, you must consider yourself very pleased. I think the range is 12 to 15. If he gets more than that, consider it the cherry on top of the sundae. They've got other guys that they want to use. They're probably going to default to throwing the ball because that's what they've done a lot this year. Johnson does look like he can go. He's a good athlete. He's got some size, got a ridiculous salad on top of his head. But I'm not banking on 20 touches from Ty Johnson. But you don't need 20 touches at 4,900 either. He's very good in the passing game. 4 catches last week. We've seen him sprinkled in a few weeks before. I think that you could see 15 touches out of him. And if you project him to be a profit at 15 touches, then go ahead and play him. The bottom line is we don't for sure know what they're going to do in a full game without Kerryon Johnson. We're projecting in this case, and I personally am projecting about 15 touches there. Woods over Cup. Didn't Cincy actually double the slot twice this season? I'm going to have to look more into that. I don't know for sure. I don't have an answer for you right here. I don't have a problem with Woods, though, if that's the base of the question. Thoughts on Devonta Freeman or Melvin Gordon in the flex for GPP? I probably am not going to roster Freeman if Ryan is not starting this week. And there's just too many mouths to feed on the Chargers. I think if you believe that Melvin Gordon's going to get 2 touchdowns this week and you want to fade all the traffic that's going to be on Hunter Henry and on Mike Williams, then I'm totally fine with that. If that's the reasoning and the route that you're taking in tournaments. So fine. Is Mike Williams and Hunter Henry in the same lineup a terrible idea? No, not if you think that they can both get there on volume, right? If you think that both can pay off their salary with 1 touchdown between them, fine. But realize that if you're playing those two and you're not playing their quarterback with them in a tournament lineup, you're kind of capping your ceiling a little bit. Both of them do have touchdown upside individually, but how many touchdowns do you really feel are going to be scored on a team that has a total of 20? Why is everyone high on Michael Thomas? Good answer by Z Miski, because he's really good. I understand the philosophy that people are a little bit worried about Michael Thomas because of the matchup that he's going to have this weekend, assuming that Patrick Peterson is going to be following him around and trying to dog him all over the field. And if you want to fade that, I'm fine with that. But I've said for a really, really long time that outside of a couple of situations and a couple of cornerbacks, I will take bad cornerback matchups into consideration when it comes to shutting down a receiver. But I also think that there are some guys that are somewhat matchup proof. And Michael Thomas is one of those guys. Hopkins is one of those guys. There's just certain receivers that even in a tough matchup, Julio Jones is one of those guys. Even in a tough matchup, they have the ability to still hit their number because of the amazing amount of volume that they get, right? So like volume trumps everything when it comes to fantasy. and a bad matchup may make you slightly less efficient. But if he gets a similar volume to what he's gotten these last 4 games, 11, 12, 13, 9 targets in those 4 games, it's highly unlikely, based on his average depth of target, that he's going to have 3 catches. It's also highly unlikely that he's going to have 4 or 5 targets. So while I will attack a really bad matchup, right, like a bad cornerback going up against an average wide receiver, I'm more likely to play that average wide receiver against a horrible cornerback because teams will more than likely attack that. Just because Patrick Peterson's on the field and possibly shadowing Michael Thomas, they're not going to not throw the ball to Michael Thomas. Now, he may be slightly less efficient. He may get 7 catches instead of 9. But Julio Jones last week in a matchup against Jalen Ramsey and the Rams, he was the only wide receiver who caught balls last week for Atlanta. So a great wide receiver, a matchup-proof wide receiver, can still do well, though slightly less efficient in a tougher matchup. Any Eckler love this week? Tournament dart throw, maybe, to be contrarian. He's not going to be very highly owned. So if that's if that's a route that you want to go to try and overweight the field in tournaments, I'm not going to tell you don't do it, because the supply has been absolutely tremendous in the passing game. But best case scenario, and this is not really week 8 actionable, but just me as a fan of the kid, I kind of hope that Melvin Gordon gets traded to somebody. I think it's better for both. I think that Melvin Gordon needs to move on. Would love to see him go to a team for the rest of this season that needs a running back, maybe like the Lions, or somewhere else where he could actually get the carries and the volume that he needs to be successful, and then walk at the end of the year. And then Eckler could get the volume that he needs to be successful as well, because too many talented players and too many mouths to feed. And the Chargers, as average a team as they are, they do have a lot of mouths to feed on offense, between Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry and Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler. That's a lot of dudes, right? And anytime you get that many players that need to get the ball, it's tougher than, say, this situation. And Chad hasn't asked, but we were talking about a little bit before. You want to see a better situation for fantasy? I'll show you a couple. Here's one. The Buccaneers. The Buccaneers offense is outstanding in terms of fantasy. You know why? 2 of the dudes get 50% of the targets. All the balls get thrown to Godwin and Evans. That's it. 53 targets for each of them. Yeah, Al, but what about the red zone? They've got big bodied tight ends. Okay, in the red zone, they've soaked up 17 of the overall targets on this team. They see even a greater market share of the red zone and end zone targets in Tampa Bay than they do of the overall targets. This is the look that you want from a team. Now, if we go look at the Chargers, and granted, the Chargers are going to look weird because of the fact that, they've got multiple guys who were injured for multiple weeks this year. Okay, that's a little tougher. Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry is sitting at 8.8 on the season. But if we look at the last 2 weeks, Chargers versus Titans only, and go to targets, that's a lot. 25%, 27%. If we look back at the week before that, week 6 against the Steelers, that's a lot. 23%. A tight end getting over 20% of the target market share is tremendous. So the season for the Chargers, you kind of have to look at what they get on every single game. Another really good target situation. Where'd they go? Now I forget where I was going with this too. Oh, the Lions. There it is. Oh, hi. Hawkinson had 9 targets week 1, and he's had not that many since. So that target share has fallen over the weeks. Danny Amendola, 1 week he's all right, 1 week he's not all right. Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones, roughly 20% of the market share every single week, and then 25% each of the red zone targets, or the red zone targets, and TJ Hawkinson right there with them. So if you're stacking a quarterback, you want to get a guy who's going to throw the ball to specific players a lot, so that if Stafford has a really big day, it is highly likely that Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay are going to have a big day. If you think that Jameis Winston's going to have a big day, it is highly likely that one or both of Kenny Golladay and Evans are going to have a big day, and it makes them very stackable for tournaments and something that you should attack and try to overweight the field on. Do you really need to play McCaffrey against the 49ers defense? No, you don't. You don't really need to, especially with the other players that are available at running back this week. There's a lot of players that have good matchups or bell cow type usage in better matchups. So like McCaffrey's great, right? And I've said like I'm not gonna full fade him. I feel like full fading Christian McCaffrey is a mistake in tournaments. I haven't really dug into ownership numbers yet. It's not something that I do this early in the week. I need news to break. I need to know the injuries so I can have a better idea of where these guys are going to be, but it's not going to be high. I think one of the highest owned running backs is going to be Leonard Fournette, and for good reason. He just gets 25 plus touches every single week. He's going up against a Jets defense that is not as bad as the Bengals against the run, but they're not good against the run either. They're the 6th worst team in the league in terms of allowed running back fantasy points on DraftKings. So this is another fantastic matchup for Fournette. We know that we're going to get a ton of volume, both in the running game and the passing game. And Fournette has 27 red zone carries and 1 touchdown on the year. So all this damage that he's doing has come without him really getting into the end zone against pretty much anybody except Carolina back in week 5. So there's some touchdown regression coming his way as well. I don't know if it's going to happen this week. I just know that the Jets haven't been good, and they've allowed a touchdown on 6% of carries or something like that from opposing running backs, and 30% of red zone carries against the Jets have turned into touchdowns. You know that Fournette's going to get the looks. You know that he's going to get the red zone usage. He has a lot of touchdown equity going into this week, and I think he's going to carry a high price tag or a high ownership tag. Todd Gurley going up against Cincinnati, as bad as any team is, you know they're going to have multiple trips to the red zone. I don't think he's going to get there on volume alone. I don't think he's going to break big runs. He just hasn't done it all year long, along of 10, 12, 13, 9, 2 runs over 20 yards, and they both came in the first 2 weeks. I want the old Todd Gurley back, but I don't know that we're ever going to see him. But he does have good touchdown equity this weekend against Cincinnati. But you're basically, as Adam Levitan said on the Edge podcast, you're betting on touchdowns, and it's costing you $7.4K in salary to do it. Chris Carson, tremendous volume against a bad team in a matchup where they may not have their quarterback and get blown out, making it even more of a Carson scripted game. Saquon Barkley, if you want to pay up against a really horrible team against the run, allowing like 130 plus yards per game on the ground. You also have his pass game usage if you think that Barkley is completely healthy, and based on Jordan Raynon's tweet earlier, he is not at all on the injury report right now, so we're assuming health from him. I like that he came back in the game after kind of turning his ankle last week. Le'Veon Bell should have good usage in the passing game, but like he didn't before. Alvin Kamara, if he is back this week against Arizona, tremendous spot, an even better spot for him if Breeze comes back in this game. So we're waiting on both of those news items to break on Friday. And the Saints have been really good about letting us know on Friday afternoon who's in and who's out, not like the Cardinals, who are being jerks about every single injury designation, especially to their running backs. So the Saints have been a little bit easier to figure out for us in terms of usage and rates. So no, that's the longest way I could possibly answer that question. But no, I don't think that Christian McCaffrey is a must play with all of these other cats in this range who are cheaper. And we haven't even gone down here to look at the guys down there yet, but there's definitely plays in that sub 7K range as well. We talked about Ty Johnson already. So plenty of plays at running back this week. And that's one of the reasons, A, why I don't think that Christian McCaffrey is a must play this week, but also B, he might be under owned for the amount of volume that he's going to see. And he also has big playability. A great defense can give up a big play. So what if he's not very efficient, right? On a per play basis, McCaffrey. Let's just assume that he's not going to be as efficient because it's a really, really, really good defense. But he gets 25 plus touches and 5 of those come through the air. And one of those touches turns into a 65-yard touchdown. All of a sudden, Christian McCaffrey's got 27 to 30 fantasy points on a day where instead of being 30% owned like he will be on every other slate this year, he's like 11% owned. So there's merits to fading him and there's merits to overweighting the field. And I haven't decided which one I'm going to be yet. James White has the most red zone targets in the entire NFL this season. Yeah, because most teams play zone once they get around the goal line, and he just kind of sits down. Like we saw it this week on Monday Night Football, right? There was that one play, and they kind of telestrated it, right? Where the Jets went into like a 3-deep zone around when they were in the red zone. And James White just kind of ran through the line, turned around, sat down, and caught a little 8-yard pass and got tackled on like the 6-yard line. He has not had less than 11.6 fantasy points on DraftKings in any one game this year. James White at 5,100 is a good play. Potential blowout situation, lots of run opportunities. You were answering a question from someone. I assume that we're talking about Carson. Would I fade Cup based on possible running game script against Cincy? No. That's just not. The Rams are going to move the ball. That's it. DeAndre Hopkins in cash. If you want, he's definitely cash game viable. And there's cheap enough running backs to warrant paying up at one wide receiver spot. I just think that at least one, if not two wide receiver spots in head-to-head, double-up, 50-50 cash game lineups should be filled with value wide receivers. Like a minimum of two, maybe three. Plus, the Falcons are hot garbage. That's not false. You think Sanu is your sleeper pick? I'm not really high on Sanu. I'm never really high on Sanu, I guess. Coleman in cash. I've heard the arguments for it. Where's the upside? Where's the upside for Tevin Coleman? Here's the 1v1 that I want chat to answer. Okay? Tevin Coleman, who has gotten really, really good volume. 22 touches, 20 touches, 16 touches since his return from injury. He is clearly the RB1 right now in San Francisco. He has had 15, 14, and 8.1 DraftKings points, but 12 of those points came off touchdowns. So on volume alone, he has not cracked 10 DraftKings points. In 1 week, has not cracked 10 DraftKings points. He has not been efficient, 2.5 yards per carry, 3.1 yards per carry. Yes, he's back home. Carolina's defense against the run is not suspect, right? They're not a team that we just pick on. Long of 9. Who is this dude? Tevin Coleman used to be the guy that would break off long runs. A long of 9 for 2 straight weeks? Okay, whatever. Yes, it is possible for him to get more than 10 volume points. I agree with that. But like, he feels to me right now as though he is touchdown dependent. James White is the exact opposite. You're not going to get 20 touches out of James White, but you could get 12 with 70 to 80% of those coming in the pass game. And those are more valuable touches as each one of those catches turns into a point. I think I prefer James White. He's also had 3 touchdowns called back this year, so he's been touchdown unlucky. And so on volume points alone, James White has a higher floor. And I think that they both have a very similar ceiling. And New England's got a much higher team total than do the San Francisco 49ers. So I think the ceilings are somewhat similar. You're looking at a 22 to 25 point ceiling out of both of these players. And I think that James White's floor is higher. I like the combination of floor to ceiling with James White more than I like the combination of floor to ceiling with Coleman, even though Coleman's going to see more volume. So chat, what do you think? Do you agree with me or am I insane? Do you think that I'm wrong and you prefer Coleman just because he's got more volume? Because not all volume is created the same. Not all volume is created the same. Isn't Sony like 5,300? Yeah, I also prefer him to Sony. That's 24 points in the last 3 weeks off of touchdowns. Sony is 100% touchdown dependent. Sony did not look good against the Jets either. And that's not a good team. Defensively against running backs. That is not a good team. And he just did not look good. Freeman or White if Ryan plays? White. Thoughts on Levitan's all Penn State lineup? That's his gimmick, dude. Smokey and Cash, thoughts. Feels a little thin. I love Smokey is John Brown, for those who don't know. I love John Brown in tournaments. I think he's a little thin for Cash this week because the prices come up. I was fine with him in Cash at like 4,700, 5,000, maybe even 5,200. At 5,900, now we're getting into a different stratosphere of wide receiver, right? Once we get up here, right, at 5,900, and yes, we attack Philly all the time. I want to overweight the field in tournaments with John Brown. But like, now you're talking about guys like this at 6,000. You're talking about guys like this at 6,000. Marvin Jones Jr., you know, in a really high total game against a team that probably can't stop him. Calvin Ridley with increased target share based on Sanu leaving if Ryan is still the quarterback. You know, I mean, why? I want the guys that are going to get me massive volume. Even Brandon Cooks against Cincinnati in this spot, right? Like, I look at Brandon Cooks and John Brown very similarly this week, personally. But like, you're getting up into a range now. Robert Woods at 63, Golladay at 64. You're getting up into a range where I think that there are better volume plays. Would I play Stafford naked in Cash? I think it's possible. I mean, Stafford, I think, is one of my favorite, is one of my favorite quarterbacks on the week. They've thrown the ball a lot more this year than I thought that they would in total. I thought that they were just going to be a ground and pound, run the ball game. Obviously, they did not turn out to be that. We have pretty consolidated three guys who are going to get the ball through the air, and that's going to be in order: Golladay, then Jones, then TJ Hawkinson. And Kerryon Johnson's not there to really vulture anymore, and they've got a fantastic matchup against quarterbacks and wide receivers. So if you've got a lineup set up where you can't stack Stafford in Cash, I don't think stacking is necessary in Cash 100%. I'm okay with it in Cash, but I don't think you need to force it, I guess would be the best way to put it. I do think you should be stacking in tournaments 100% of the time, unless, and by the unless, I mean unless it's a quarterback who can get there without, who can get you 30 DraftKings points without locking in on one wide receiver. Unless it's a quarterback who can get you 30 DraftKings points without locking in and having one receiver have 30 fantasy points, right? Unless. But even with Deshaun Watson, so much of his targets go to Hopkins that, like, I probably want to stack him, because when he has big days, it's when a guy like Will Fuller has a big day or Hopkins has a massive day. And those things combine. It's kind of rare that he has a massive day without one of his wide receivers also going ham. Like this week against Arizona, oh, well, he went crazy that week. Yeah, but also Will Fuller. But this is why running quarterbacks, this line right here, the week 6 line, this line right here is why I'm more okay with a running quarterback having no stack in tournament lineups. I'm okay running those with running quarterbacks because they can get you 30 fantasy points, and he threw 1 touchdown that week and did not have 300 yards passing. But for a guy like Watson, typically his big days have not been because he ran the ball. Lamar Jackson would be another example of that. So usually I'm going to stack my quarterbacks unless in tournaments. Tate revenge game? What? Russ Wilson? We're just saying Russ Wilson? Or you're saying as a running quarterback? Russ Wilson doesn't run as much as he did in previous years, though he did have that 3-week stretch this year where he ran a bunch. Golden Tate and Cash. Slay missed practice again today. Golden Tate's been really, really good in terms of volume. How risky is Rivers and Cash? I mean, I pay a lot of attention to team totals when judging quarterbacks. You want quarterbacks that are in high scoring environments. And that game has one of the lower totals on the slate and I don't want to attack a quarterback in my cash game lineup, I will do it in a tournament, who's got a low expected offensive output. Jonnu Smith asks Erickson, if Delanie's completely out, then I'm okay with that. Like, I'm not going to just lock button the guy, but like, I think he's obviously viable. Great athlete, young kid, with his quarterback in a good matchup against a team that does not allow you to run. I think that the Titans are going to have to pass this week if they're going to win this game. Would I stack Golladay and Jones for GPP? Yeah. You can double stack in tournaments. You don't have to. I think that people get overzealous with double stacking. I think that it's the amount of double stacking a quarterback with two of his pass catchers doesn't win as many tournaments and doesn't make sense as often as people do it. So it's kind of gotten out of hand. I do think bringing it back with another player on the other team makes sense, but I don't think that that you should be double stacking every quarterback and wide receiver combo on a team and bringing it back with, like, I don't want 100% game stacks. I don't. I want some game stacks. I want specific game stacks, but like TJ Hernandez did a great breakdown on this. It was something like a double stack quarterback wins 4% of the time, but people are double stacking 80% of their quarterbacks in tournaments. So that strategy is a little bit negative EV if you're overdoing it. But when it happens and it works, you'll win all the money. But I've detailed situations that make more sense to double stack. The Buccaneers make more sense to double stack. The Lions make a little bit more sense to double stack. You know, they make more sense. There are more paths to that being a successful winning lineup than teams where, you know, well, I double stacked a quarterback with one guy that's got 18% target market share and another guy that has 6% target market share. But if they catch 4 touchdowns, I'm going to win all the money. Yeah, if they do, but like, you're putting you might as well take that $20 you're going to enter that in the Millie Maker and just flush it down a toilet. But that one time though, yeah, that one time you're still going to have to nail the other 7 spots on the lineup. Double stacking Houston, you can, but like, see, if I double stack a quarterback, I want to make sure that both of those guys can have a big day. Is fading CMC this week? Yeah, we already went over that. Take the 20 and go load up on Powerball tickets. Yeah, like, I want to take reasonable, rational shots at winning a tournament. And, you know, humble brags aside, I've won enough tournaments to know what you should do to win tournaments. You know? And I've won tournaments and live final seats and other things like that with you know, with a single stack. I've won with a naked quarterback. I won one ridiculous seat one week on a complete outlier week with 3 pass catchers from one team and a different quarterback. You know, and I had that triple stack quarterback with, you know, with the quarterback like 10 times, but the one that ended up winning that week was the one that had the triple stack wide receivers without the quarterback. It was like 4 or 5 years ago with 3 Broncos wide receivers when Peyton Manning threw like 50 touchdowns. So like, yeah, but like, well, that won, so you should do that all the time. I disagree with that. Like, I got really lucky to win that tournament because it was just everything kind of lined up the right way. But I think that attacking an outlier with the majority of your tournament entries is probably a bad idea, just because it's a bad idea. You know, you could pedal a bicycle with your hands. It doesn't make it a great idea. Can I go over the 6.5K plus running backs? We did that. We went over like most of the running backs. There's a lot of value at wide receiver. Yeah, okay. So you want to be contrarian this week? Let's talk about how we can be contrarian this week. All right. Being contrarian this week to me, or building contrarian tournament lineups to me. I think that in most lineups, If Kamara is healthy and Breeze is there, even if Breeze is not there, if Breeze is not there, that's going to be popular. That's going to be popular. And I think that this is going to be popular. Where'd he go? And I think that this is going to be popular. So people are paying up a little bit at running back, you know, high to mid, right? So almost 8K for 2 running backs. So 15 to 16K at running back. And they're going to have 2 value wide receivers. So how do you build a different lineup from this? Chat, tell me. How do you build a different lineup from this right here? And it's not that difficult. It's really not that difficult. You want to build a differentiated lineup from everybody else? And in not a dumb way? Hi. You know, quarterback, I think people are going to look down in this range right around here. I think people are going to click Matthew Stafford a lot. I think that Tannehill is the chic value play of the week, right? Because he's squaring off against Tampa Bay, and we stream quarterbacks against Tampa Bay, and he's 5,100, and he allows you a little bit more salary. There is a path to him 4xing this salary and getting you 20 fantasy points. You're not looking to get 25 to 30. If he gets you 20, you're great. This right here differentiates you. There, that differentiates you. There, that differentiates you. Now build a lineup. You know, you want to build a differentiated tournament lineup? Do things that other people aren't doing. Here's 3 guys from games that have a total of 50 plus, 50 to 55. So you want to differentiate? It's real easy. You want to bring back Hopkins? You want to bring back Hopkins and Watson? There. Build the rest of that lineup. You now have a differentiated lineup from the field. Right? Lockett's not going to be super highly owned. Hopkins will, Waller will carry some ownership, but the combination of this lineup won't be really highly owned because you're going to have to find 2 value plays at running back because it's not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to get up to Leonard Fournette and anything else. Is that really all it takes? Yes, that's really all it takes. You can be contrarian without being stupid. And this is why I always start with cash game lineups, and this is why I hate it when people say, oh, Al's the cash game guy that I should listen to. Really? Okay. Like, maybe, but like, that doesn't mean that I'm not good at talking about how to win tournaments. I've won enough in my career to know how to win tournaments. You can differentiate very easily in tournaments by just doing what other people aren't doing and picking players in good offensive environments. You don't have to be, you know, well, everybody's talking about that. Here's how I'm going to differentiate this week. I'm going to play Josh Reynolds. Because, like, if 3 wide receivers get injured, this is going to be my guy. And I'm going to be the only one that's got him. And I'm going to win all the money. Because he's going to have 2 touchdowns. The hell are you doing, dude? Just play players that make sense, right? Just play guys that make sense. You don't have to find somebody that's, you know, 0.5% owned. You don't. Find a guy. Okay, wait. You want a guy that's not going to be owned at all? He should see a lot of snaps, but really low floor. But why are we doing that? Hooper's got a fantastic matchup. I think that people are going to click Waller instead of Hooper. It just seems, you know. And that's also why I play less players in my player pool than most people play in their player pool, I suppose, because I kind of want to focus and overweight. What's the Galaxy Brain move for this week? I don't know yet. Like what people, I mean, we talked about it yesterday on the pre-NBA show when we were live for NBA, and Manny and I were talking about the value plays, and it's like they all kind of look like they suck. And I was talking at length about the paths to Marquise Chris failing, right? because there were definite paths to him failing. And he kind of did, right? So it comes down to what your projection is going to be on that guy. So to me, it's the same thing. I want to play guys that I'm projecting to get a lot of run, a lot of burn. I want guys that are going to be on the field a ton. I want guys that are going to get targeted a lot. I want guys that are targeted in advantageous matchups. I want guys that are going to get the ball around the red zone against teams that are inefficient at stopping teams in the red zone or in the end zone, and find where those puzzle pieces kind of fit together. Keenan Allen wasn't practicing today. That's unfortunate for Keenan Allen, but I think that's very good for Mike Williams and Hunter Henry, and possibly Eckler as well. TG, you nailed it. If somebody like Reynolds, not Reynolds specifically, but a Reynolds-ish player on this slate hits for 2 touchdowns and that's what beats me, so be it. That is the philosophy that you have to have. That is how you have to look at things, right? You can't play everybody. Thoughts on Goddard for a low tight end, for a low price tight end? Low price tight ends right now. Hawkinson at 3,500 because of the usage that you saw on that viz that we had earlier, right? Everett's a trap. I think he's gotten too expensive. He's running routes on like 50% of his quarterbacks dropbacks. He does have a good amount of red zone usage, and saw a lot of targets last week, but I think we're going to see a lot of these weeks mixed in where he gets 5 targets, 2 targets, 4 targets, and less of these 11 and 10 target weeks. That might be different, right? Because like I said, Seattle is a really bad team at stopping tight ends. They've allowed like 65 yards a game to opposing tight ends. They've allowed quarterbacks to have like 125 or 130 passer rating when targeting tight ends against them. They're just a bad team against tight ends and somebody that we should be streaming against all season long. Atlanta is just bad, and we should be streaming against them all season long. But against better teams, he hasn't really had that amount of production. I think his price is too high. I need him at like 3,500 to be able to play him. Delanie Walker, if he misses this game, and we don't know, then I think Jonnu Smith is somebody that we should target. If Jared Cook plays this game, plus if Drew Brees plays this game, I like Cook even more because of the matchup with Arizona. Who else? Where'd they go? You were asking about Goddard. I don't really play tight ends against Buffalo. I not want. I take the path of least resistance. If Jonnu Smith is the guy and Delanie Walker misses, and I think Jonnu Smith is probably my favorite puntish play, sub 3K. I know that there's going to be a lot of noise around Cameron Brate because we just had OJ Howard designated as out for this weekend, so everybody's ready to jump on the Brate train once again. Oh my God, Cameron Brate's going to be amazing because OJ Howard's out. Why? Why is all of a sudden Cameron Brate going to be a 7 or an 8 target guy? I need somebody to explain that to me, because currently my initial reaction, and thankfully I have until Sunday where my mind can be changed on this. I'm not stuck in my ways. I don't get take lock. But my official, or my initial take is that Cam Brate is going to be inline blocking a little bit more this week because OJ Howard is not there to be the inline blocking tight end. So maybe he will see more snaps. He should see more snaps, but I don't think he's going to run routes on 70 or 80% of his snaps. This is going to be a slowed down game for Tampa Bay. Tennessee is going to be playing up in pace. Tennessee is going to force Tampa Bay to play slower. So there's going to be less opportunities for him in terms of overall plays for Tampa for their offense. I do agree that he brings touchdown upside because he seems to be Winston's safety blanket once they get near the end zone. So there is some touchdown upside, but I think that we are headed for a 4 or 5 target game from Cameron Brate. And if you can convince me otherwise, then fine. We may be on target for a 4 to 5 target game out of Jonnu Smith as well. But I think that he's more explosive a player. Much better at getting downfield. We've seen a 57-yard catch from him already this year, at a 35-yard reception, a 20-yard reception. This is a super athlete playing tight end who does carry red zone usage if Delanie Walker's out, but also has that big play possibility, kind of like Chris Herndon did for us last year. And that's why I prefer Jonnu Smith to BRATE if I'm punting tight end. BRATE has a floor of like 4 or 5 points. Most definitely. Totally agree. Thoughts on the Gazelle if he plays? I like that entire game. Whoever's playing and catching balls in that game, I'm in. You thought pre-Howard draft BRATE got a lot of targets with Winston? He did, but it's a different offense. You have to take into consideration the offense and the way that the positions are being utilized in that different offense. Now, historically, a lot was made this offseason about how OJ Howard was going to buck the trend in Arians offenses that never really used the tight end before, and they just don't feature the tight end in this offense. And people's answer was, yeah, but OJ Howard, he's never had an OJ Howard. He had Heath Miller. He had these guys that were very average. Now he's got OJ Howard, and now he didn't use OJ Howard, just like he never used these guys before. So why are we all of a sudden thinking that OJ Howard's out? Now he's going to suddenly just throw the ball 10 times towards Cameron BRATE. You got until Sunday to change my mind, because right now I'm not on board. I'm on board with him as a tournament sprinkle dart throw guy that hopefully maybe he catches 2 touchdowns and smashes value, but those 2 touchdowns could very easily come on 4 catches, right? If that happens. I don't see a path to 8+ targets at all. That's it when it comes to BRATE. That's my entire opinion right now is based on that. BRATE will get a lot of short throws because they have no running game. Why? Why would BRATE get those throws and not Godwin and Evans? Like 50% of the throws have gone that way already. And it's not that they have no running game. They have no offensive line. So their inline tight end has to block. That's why Howard is running routes on 50% of their dropbacks. Why not Evans or Goodwin? Godwin. Thank you. That's really what I'm saying. We know who they play and why. And in what situations. But that's going to do it, guys. Thank you for joining. I appreciate you guys being here this week. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, make sure that you ring that notifications bell. With NBA season here and overlap season is upon us. I've got a ton of videos pretty much every day. Monday through Friday is a double upload day, and a couple of those days are triple upload days. I don't want you to miss any of it, so be sure that you ring that bell. Sunday morning is the Anti-Tinkercast, 45 minutes before lock. I'll see you on Twitch. There's a link down below in the description. I'll catch you guys later. Bye.
He's a legend.